Okay, so picture this. The year is 1857, and India just erupts. We're talking about a massive, fiery rebellion against British power, one that literally changed the course of history. So today, we're diving into the story of that incredible moment.
But it really makes you wonder, right? How does something like this even happen? I mean, what could possibly bring together soldiers, powerful queens, and everyday farmers to take on one of the biggest empires on the planet? Well, that's the big puzzle we're going to try and solve today.
All right, so where do we even start? Well, to get why this explosion happened, we got to look at the ticking time bomb that was sitting there for decades. And the whole thing kicks off with a really weird kind of ruler. Okay, get this, because it's kind of wild. At this point in history, India wasn't being ruled by the British government. Nope, it was ruled by a private company, the British East India Company. Just try to imagine that for a second. It's like if a giant tech company wasn't just a company, but also your government, your army, and the people who collect your taxes. Yeah. This super strange setup created a really tense and unpredictable vibe all over India. Now, an uprising this huge doesn't just pop up overnight. Not at all. This was the result of decades, almost a century really, of anger just simmering below the surface. So let's break down all the different things that were piling up. You know, the fuel just waiting for a match. So first up, let's talk politics. The company was basically on a land grab, just swallowing up one local kingdom after another. A big one was in 1856, when they took over the state of Awadh, saying it was being misruled, which was, a pretty convenient excuse. But there was this one policy, this one rule, that really, really felt like a personal attack on Indian rulers. And that policy was called the Doctrine of Lapse. And believe me, it was a total game changer. See, for centuries, it was a common practice for Indian rulers to adopt a son if they didn't have a biological one. Totally normal. But this new rule just said, nope, not valid anymore. The famous warrior queen, Rani Lakshmibai of Jhansi, she was told her adopted son couldn't be the heir, and so her kingdom was just gone. You can imagine how infuriating and deeply personal that was. All right, then you've got the money side of things. The economic pressure was intense. The British slapped these incredibly high taxes on people with really harsh rules for collecting them. It pushed tons of farmers and even landowners into serious debt and poverty. And that anger wasn't just in the fields. It spread right into the company's own army. The Indian soldiers, known as sepoys, were getting paid way less and had almost zero chance of promotion compared to the British soldiers next to them. And then, layered on top of all that political and economic stuff, was this really deep fear, a fear that the British were actively trying to destroy Indian culture and religion. A new law in 1850 made it so people who converted to Christianity could still inherit family property, and that felt like a huge threat. People were suspicious of everything, even new things like railways and telegraphs. They weren't seen as progress, they were seen as foreign tools meant to tear apart the fabric of their society. So, let's recap. We've got political anger, economic hardship, and this deep-seated social and religious fear. It's like a massive pile of dry kindling. All it needs is one little spark to set the whole thing ablaze. And that spark, well, it came from a new rifle. Yup, a rifle. In 1856, the Army brings in this brand new, state-of-the-art weapon, the Enfield rifle. It's supposed to be a big improvement. But a rumor, just a rumor about this rifle, would turn out to be the final straw. Okay, here's the deal with the Enfield. To load it, you had to bite open a paper cartridge to pour the gunpowder in. The rumor that spread like wildfire was that these cartridges were greased with cow and pig fat. Now, for Hindu soldiers, the cow is sacred. For Muslim soldiers, the pig is unclean. This wasn't just a minor offense. This was seen as a deliberate plot to destroy their faith, to defile the most sacred beliefs of literally every single Indian soldier. And after that, things just spiraled out of control, and fast. In March, a sepoy named Mangal Pandey openly defies his British officers. By April, he's executed for it, and instantly becomes a martyr. And then boom, May 10th, in the city of Meerut, the sepoys there have had enough. They rise up, attack their officers, and the revolt is on. And what started as a mutiny in one single city did not stay there. It was like an inferno. It just exploded, spreading across North and Central India, turning from a mutiny into a full-blown, widespread rebellion. So what's the first thing the rebels from Meerut do? They march straight to Delhi, the historic capital. And this was a brilliant move, both strategically and symbolically. They find the old Mughal emperor, Bahadur Shah Zafar, who honestly didn't have much real power at this point, and they proclaim him the leader of their rebellion. All of a sudden, they're uprising as a figurehead, a symbol of legitimacy. And with this spark, leaders started popping up all over the country, each with their own personal reason to join the fight. You had Rani Lakshmibai in Jhansi, fighting for her adopted son's right to rule. You had Nana Sahib in Kanpur, who'd been denied his father's pension. In Lucknow, Begum Hazrat Mahal was fighting back against the annexation of her kingdom. This shows you, it wasn't just one organized army. It was a massive coalition, which really drives home how deep and widespread the anger was. Speaking of leaders, Rani Lakshmibai became an absolute legend. Her bravery and skill on the battlefield were so incredible that even the British general who finally defeated her, a guy named Sir Hugh Rose, gave her this, well, it's kind of a backhanded compliment, but it speaks volumes. But for all the incredible bravery and passion, the revolt was eventually put down. Why? Well, a few key reasons. The rebels never really had a single central leadership. They were outmatched in terms of resources, and the uprising never really spread to the southern or eastern parts of India. On the other side, the British forces were just better equipped and way more coordinated, and they managed to take back control city by city, often in really brutal ways. But here's the thing. Even though the revolt failed, it was an absolutely monumental turning point. The fire of 1857 might have been put out, but in its aftermath, a totally new India and a new relationship with Britain was forged. And the changes were huge, and they happened fast. The British government was completely shocked by this. So, number one, they decided the East India Company could no longer be trusted to run a country, so they just dissolved it, gone. Number two, the British Crown, Queen Victoria herself, takes direct control of India. Number three, they issue a big proclamation promising to respect Indian customs, basically trying to smooth things over. And finally, number four, they completely reorganize the army, bringing in way more European soldiers to make sure nothing like this could ever happen again. You can actually see this massive shift in a simple change of title. Before, the top British official was the Governor-General, who basically worked for a company. After 1858, that person is now called the Viceroy, which means they are the direct representative of the Queen. That's a huge difference. It signals a much more formal, direct, and powerful form of colonial rule. And all of that brings us to this one crucial year, 1858. This is the year the music stops for the East India Company. It's the official beginning of what's known as the British Raj, a 90-year period where Britain itself, the Crown, would rule India directly. So that leaves us with one last really big question to think about. The revolt didn't succeed, right? It failed to kick the British out. But by bringing all these different people, soldiers, queens, farmers, together to fight a common enemy, it kind of forged a new sense of what it meant to be Indian. So you have to ask, was this massive, bloody failure actually the first essential chapter in the long, long story of India's eventual freedom?